Some of the masters of bird language are able to be in a full conversation with a group of people or an individual, and at the same time be able to listen to all that's going on in the world around them, to the birds talking, to subtle chip notes to tell them if there's a cat in the forest or if someone's approaching. And how do you do that? How are you able to, or how does one listen to the subtle quiet sounds while there's louder, more persistent noises going on? Because it's really common, or it's important for our brains to shut out unnecessary information. That's something that our brains are designed to do so that we can hone in on the important sounds. However, if you're learning bird language and wanting to connect more deeply with the birds, it's can be an awesome practice to learn how to listen to what the birds are saying while there's some louder voices. And it can be really fun, you know, if you're in the middle of a conversation with someone and you can know what's happening in the landscape behind you. So today we're going to do just that. We're going to focus on and learn how to listen to the quieter sounds while there are louder sounds in our landscape around us. Thanks for joining me this morning. I'm Kristi from Bird Mentor, where I teach people how to connect more deeply with the birds in the world around them. This is the Mindful Bird Sit. Let's get started. Welcome everybody. So let's get started. All right, take a nice deep breath in and let it go. Just allow yourself to connect to your space right now. Noticing all of those who are sharing space with you in this moment. Just look around. Give yourself a moment to connect with all of those beings, whether it be plant, tree, bird, whatever it might be. Good work. All right, and now let's bring our attention a little closer to home. And I'd like you to take a moment to go within and to notice your own body right now without changing anything. Just notice, what is your body experiencing right now? Noticing your breath, your posture, the sensations on your skin. What's it like to reside in your body this morning? And if you notice anything, like maybe a tightness in your belly, or if there's a particular posture that you have that you didn't want to have, then go ahead and shift that right now. Do so without judgment if possible, just allowing both to be the way you were sitting, whatever your natural baseline was, and the way you want to be sitting or breathing. Good work. And so now, as a way to bring it even further into our experience, close your eyes, if you will. Take a nice deep breath in and let it go. And as you do, I want you to travel down as if your feet had roots. So we can connect first with the soles of your feet, feeling the sensation of them on your shoes or on the earth or ground beneath you. And then imagining that there are roots extending down and out. So you have a deep, deep taproot. And then you have these little filaments, these little fibrous roots stretching out. And they go out as wide as your crown, your tree crown if you were a tree. So if your arms were stretched out. And just take a few moments to notice what it's like to reside in the quiet, in the darkness, in the stillness of your roots and the space around it right now. Beautiful. And so now you can, your next breath in, go ahead and pull up the nutrients from the earth into your body, noticing as it travels up your toes, your ankles, your legs, your hips, your belly, into your chest, and feeling your chest all the way full. And let it go. Take one more nice deep breath in, all the way from your roots, extending all the way up through your body to the crown of your head this time. Beautiful. Now slowly, gently, you can begin to open your eyes and allow your gaze to fall on whatever it is that most inspires you in this moment. And just let your eyes be soft. Let your vision be soft. And you found your one point to focus on. And now you're going to stretch in every direction your capacity to see. How far can your vision stretch in all directions while staying soft? So you're still looking at that one point, but your vision has expanded. And let's just stay here for a moment and notice what you see. Oftentimes we start to pick up on some of the gentleness of the earth, the little flutter of a leaf or a butterfly wing, things that our eyes may or may not have picked up on before, or maybe we disregarded them because they were so subtle. But when we stay in owl eyes or the softened vision, we often can see them more easily. It's also a really good habit to get into if you want to see the birds during migration. Those sneaky ones that like to hide in the trees. Good work. So now go ahead and send your awareness through your ears out into the landscape. Again, like an explorer, we're going to explore the landscape around us, this time with our ears. So your eyes are still going to stay soft, but your ears are going to be exploring the land around you. And just noticing who's there, who's present with you in an audible sense. Staying soft in your eyes, but attuned to your ears. Good work. Now, we'll start our practice today by listening first for the more prominent or loud sounds. So not necessarily the ones that are the most consistent, but just the ones that are the loudest, that really grab our attention. They might be the most consistent, but they might be intermittent as well. And I want you just to identify them, not necessarily that you have to know if it's a bird and you don't have to name it, but just you can make up your own name for it, or just somehow make a mental note of that sound and where it is on the landscape. So we're just exploring the landscape right now with our ears for the loudest sounds that we can hear. And remember to explore in a big 360-degree range, so not forgetting the area behind you as well. Good work. So now we're going to shift our attention to the layer, not the quietest sounds just yet, but the layer in between the loudest and the quietest. So maybe like a robin song, for instance, although that could be the loudest one. Something that's, not like a jackhammer, but not like a whisper either. So somewhere in between there. And you'll do the same. You'll just acknowledge who it is or what it is and where on the landscape it is. And some of you might find now that we're getting into the sounds that aren't the most prominent, that it might be helpful to close your eyes. So you're invited, if you want to close your eyes, though you can keep them open. It's not necessary to close them. Okay, beautiful. So now we're going to be listening for the quieter, more subtle, a little bit less or more discrete sounds on the landscape. So that might be something like a chip note from a bird. It could be like a bluebird song, which tends to be a bit more like a whisper. So anything that's nice and soft and quiet, just a little bit more subtle, maybe farther away because they're soft too, or they can be quieter too. So start to explore the landscape for the quiet sounds now. Okay, so now we're going to add a layer to this. This part might take a little bit of effort on your brain's part, but what you're going to do, as if in sort of similar to the story I told before, imagine that the louder sounds on the landscape are people talking to you. Those, whatever the sounds are, they're important, and you need to listen to them as if someone's introducing themselves to you for the first time. They're telling you their name, where they're from, they're telling you important information about themselves, and you really need to and want to listen to that information. So that's going to be the louder sounds. You're going to need to be listening to the loud sounds. But what I also want you to do is track and follow the subtle sounds at the same time. So do your best to follow those subtle sounds while you're still listening to the loud sounds also. So you're not going to cancel any one of them out. You're going to do your best to track both at the same time and just play with it. See what happens. Good work. We'll do one more round of this. And just noticing if you are getting sort of lost in the louder sounds or maybe even in the quieter sounds, if one of those is pulling your attention away from the other quality of sound. And then do your best just to stay present to both. All right, good work, everybody. So take the next moment or two to wrap up and offer a blessing or gratitude to those ones that came into your awareness and shared space with you this morning. All right. So whoever would like to stay, please stay for our chat. And if you have to head out, that's totally fine too. Thank you for coming as always. It's so good to see you all. So I'd love to hear from y'all. And also, I just wanted to say that I don't think she's here. I think it's Claudia. So I wanted to respond to something that Claudia said last week, and I'll do that later, um, or after some people share. But anyway, I just wanted to let you know that I have something else I want to add from last week. So anyone want to share? Yeah, Anne, please. Yep.
I enjoyed this. I was smiling because it reminded me I was an elementary school librarian for 24 years. And it reminded me of a library full of 30 kids. And, you've got the drone of the crickets, which is just normal library noise. You've got the car, which is maybe a teacher coming through. Which noises do I need to pay attention to? Is the teacher stopping? I have a student at my desk, which is a chickadee dee 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 telling me, and it's like, do they need attention? And then are you listening for the heated argument, which are the Blue Jays? And it was like, do I need to pay attention to that? Or, oh, they're settled, we're good. So it was like comparing this to our daily lives and the noises the sounds that we have, and whether they demand our attention. Is it the washing machine running? Oh, or did the dryer go off? You know, so it was just the different attention that things were demanding. So
Yeah, that's
I thought it was fun.
great. Thanks, Anne, for that.
Yeah.
I love the analogy with the library, the librarian, all the years you did that for. I'm wondering how it was for you to track all of those and listen at the same time for some of the more subtle sounds and the quieter sounds. What was that like for you?
It brought back good memories. I was
Mm.
good at what I did, and not everything demands our attention. I don't have to, jump out of my seat. So, but Blue Jays are going to take care of it. Chickadee's eating. Insects got some rain last night. We're all good.
Nice.
So,
Right on.
yeah.
Sweet. Thanks for that. I love it. Thank you. Mhm. Awesome. Who else would like to share? Yeah, Kelly and then Julia and then Cheryl.
Uh, yeah, so at first, when we first started listening, I really started to get overwhelmed, and a little bit anxiety building up. There were just a lot. It just kind of felt like one loud noise was clicking on after another all around me, and it just was like, oh my gosh, we've got to stop. Like this is just too much. But the final activity of tuning into the quieter sounds as a car drives by um, was a lot more peaceful. Like I was able to go back to baseline and just be like, okay, this is fine. And I felt like some of the loudest noises quieted down actually, which was helpful for me too. But yeah, so it was just a kind of a different experience on both sides. But good, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I hear you definitely on the overwhelm of the loud noises, and especially for those of us who start to become more attuned to the quieter sounds. It's almost like we become like you begin to hear more, because you are tuning into the subtle sounds. So of course the louder sounds almost get louder, and that can be really hard for our nervous system to take all that in, because imagining a time maybe a couple hundred years ago or even longer ago, there may not have been quite so many. I don't want to say there weren't loud sounds. Of course, there were probably people singing and, like grain grinding and hammers hammering and there probably were loud sounds, but it was just different, probably different quality and different consistency. And one thing that was beautiful often, I would imagine, about a lot of some of the older sounds was that there often was rhythm to them. I don't know if you knew, I think I've shared that with you guys before. It's beautiful video that someone did from Africa, of an African village, and they put it together like with the music of the village, and they had people like forging a hammer and then or like an axe, and then someone else was grinding, pounding on some grain, and then someone else was sawing, and some little boys were drumming on something, and but they had it going all at the same time, but each thing had this beautiful rhythm to it. It was um like even the pounding of the grain had its own ka-chunk, 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 and the hammer was like ka-ting, 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 and the saw was like kush, 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 kush. There was just a beautiful, and then like this lady was walking by, and you could see her like, and everything had its little rhythm. So the whole village was this like humming, buzzing, beautiful rhythm. And I think what can be hard for our nervous systems in the modern day is that the rhythm of the sounds that we're hearing, there isn't quite the rhythm. There's maybe like a constant hum, or maybe some more louder, intense sounds. But we have to look a little bit harder to find that rhythm. I'm not saying it's not there. I think we have to look harder, and it's just different. It can be different. So yeah, I can feel you on that, Kelly, for sure. Yeah, thank you, thank you, Julia. Go for it. Or did you need to time? I'm not sure. Yeah, go ahead.
So uh, again, my thoughts go to awareness and attention. So where I set up on my deck almost every week, I'm between these two little streams that go into my pond. And while I must be aware that there's this babbling, each has their characteristic babbling all the time, I don't pay attention until we do something like this, and so that's that, paying attention to ambient sounds that are really a blessing. This is a real gift. Um, and then listening to the sounds, I've mentioned before that sometimes there are planes going over. Well, there were planes going over, and then I was able to discern this is probably not a passenger plane. There's some, I think, Air Force Reserve, anyway, some military type planes that come out from time to time, and it sounded like that. I said, oh, so I can discern the difference. The creatures are quiet this morning, but the planes were there. And I said, oh, that's one of their jets instead of, a plane landing at the airport. And it keeps happening. And then I think, it's all of a sudden, it's much cooler today. And there's a little mist, or it's a damp, cool day. And I think, that can influence the way things sound. And so I thought, sometimes, well, not to take too seriously our judgments or our discernments about the sounds, because we may not know all the factors that are influencing them. So that so that's it for today.
Wow, I feel like you always come away with some really profound, beautiful awareness of yourself, of your environment, and something that all of us can learn from. And one thing I take from the earlier part of your share was something that Kelly was referencing, and I think you spoke to it beautifully about how the ambient sounds, you said that they're a blessing, you know, even though we tune them out often, those are a blessing. And it's interesting that those are the sounds that brought Kelly back to peace, a place of peace and baseline. And it's just interesting how often we tune out the things that bring us peace, right? We're giving our attention to the loud noises, the ones like Anne was saying that might need our attention, right? Like, where's the danger? Where's this? Well, you know, it's like kind of in an anxiety state, maybe a low level of anxiety of just like this, I gotta do this. So where's the, da, 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 you know, and the place that brought Kelly back to this peacefulness were the ambient sounds, the quieter sounds, those more rhythmic, maybe natural sounds of the creek, for instance, with you, Julia, you know, and yeah, and maybe it's time for us to start to give our attention back to some of the quieter, natural, beautiful ambient sounds, as though they are essential and important and necessary for us to listen to, you know? Just an idea, just a thought. Yeah. All right, Cheryl, please.
When you started the meditation, I could hear the acorn woodpeckers, and they were the loudest thing. And then within seconds, this giant crew of clangy trucks drove right down my street, which is a tiny little narrow street, but it made so much noise. I thought, oh my God, no, now that's the biggest noise. And my fear was they're going to be grinding trees, tree trunks, because we've got a lot of stuff lying around. And of course, that's what started happening. And I thought I could get up and move, but then they would turn off the machine and they would yell at each other and they would talk. And the reality was, by the time we got into the quieter sounds, because I heard the noises, I could remove myself from the noises and hear ever decreasing levels of bird song, because there were bazillions of birds out here, you know, just very active birds. And I could hear Anna's hummingbird by the very end, and it's going on right now in the background for me. But I could with my eyes closed, I could focus more on the decreasing volume of sounds. And that was just like a miracle to me. I thought, oh no, you know, it's all ruined, but nothing was ruined at all. So that was my experience.
Wow, big high five to you, Cheryl. Dang it. Well done. And that's really inspiring. And I think that, you know, this is why we do what we're doing right now. We're stretching ourselves. We're building that muscle, you know. I don't know if it technically is a muscle or not. It's just a capacity, maybe. Building the capacity for ourselves to be able to do that on a more regular basis. So by practicing this today, you know, we're just stretching ourselves a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. You know, every week you all come back every week and we keep doing this work together. And so at some point, I think a lot of you are already finding this, that you're hearing more, you're seeing more, you're noticing more, you're perceiving more, you know, in your lives, because you're building this this beautiful skill. So nice work, Cheryl. That's not easy to do when you have tree chippers right out the door. To be able to hear a hummingbird while, I mean, that sounds like a book, I think, the makings of a book or something like that, you know? So beautiful, beautiful work. Thank you for that. Awesome. Great. Who else would like to share their story this morning? Yeah, Linda, please.
Okay, so first thing I noticed the loud noise was the traffic on a road I live out in the country, and I could hear all the trucks and the cars and the tourists out on the road. It's about a mile and a half from me, but bounces off the mountain. It's really loud this morning, and there goes another one. But and I contrasted it with when I wake up in the middle of the night. It is so quiet where I live. There's nothing except an occasional hoot from a great horned owl. There's nothing, no cars, no sounds, nothing at this time of year. So it was kind of an interesting contrast. And then I noticed what you called the ambient sounds, all the little soft chirps, the chickadees, the juncos, the goldfinches, the pine siskins. And it was like a very muted version of in the springtime when it's like really loud and raucous and cacophony. But it was just this wonderful background. And I just loved it. It was so comforting and familiar and reassuring and hopeful and all those things all rolled into one. And then the town crier arrived. And that's what I call the blue jay. He comes around and he squawks really loud. And I just imagine him disseminating all the breaking news, like watch out for this. There's a cat over in the meadow there or whatever. But he goes around the house and he just squawks. And so he did that this morning. He's not here every morning, but he came this morning. But I could listen to him and listen to the little ones kind of taking it in and like, oh, good. Oh, he let us know about this. Oh, good. Well, be careful of this and whatever. So I just kind of had a little fun with it, with the birds out here today.
Oh, that's really beautiful. I love your story and yeah, that difference that you can experience from the nighttime versus the daytime now and all those really like soft, subtle voices in your land right now. Yeah. And and that you've gotten to know them so well too, like you know your land, you know your place and your people who are all around you. And I really admire that, Linda. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, right on. Who else would like to share? Yeah, Della, please.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, I noticed that it's almost as if the switch has been flipped here, and with the equinox, and things are changing so quickly. And I noticed that, I look at a tree and I say, but yesterday you were green, and now today you're turning. And a lot of people don't think that we have seasons in California, but we definitely do. It's just a matter of paying attention to the subtleties. But in any case, concerning sound, I noticed this morning that I can hear some familiar sounds that I haven't heard since last year. And I could hear the junco, for example. They've been here, but they haven't been singing. And so, as John Young calls it, they're playing their tiny tambourine. And there was the sound, the really subtle sound of the Townsend warbler. And I just saw it scoot between the leaves. And so anyway, and they haven't been here. So they've arrived just in the last week or two. So everything is changing and the sounds are changing.
Yeah, I agree with you, Della, 100%. I think it was like 2 or 3 days ago, probably right on the equinox, when all of a sudden, like all these birds arrived. I was like, oh, they're all here. Like everyone just showed up, Holy moly, it's happening. Yeah, and I think a combination of what you shared and what Linda shared, I think I was just tracking the story that's going on through my mind right now, tracking it back to what I said earlier, the story from John, about when we were at the group, and I've had that question for a while, like how is he able to do that? I can do it sometimes, but then I know there's times where I'm like fully engaged with a person or people or whatever, and I'm not listening to what's going on. But the things that you all are speaking to right now, it's like, I guess what came to me was this idea that I think Linda, you said it's just so beautiful. It's like, you didn't use the word holy, but it's just, these sounds are just so beautiful. It's like, of course I would want to give my attention, maybe even more so, to this beautiful sound, all these beautiful voices around me. maybe not so much more than the human voices or the human sounds, but I can see maybe when you focus on the beauty of it, like the majesty of the sounds of nature, that that it's like, yeah, that's where I want my attention to go. You know, I don't necessarily want it to go to the loudest, noisiest, kind of most obnoxious sounds. Like I want it to go to the voices that are all around me, this little chip, and like, who is that? You know, be really curious about that, these sounds that are talking all around me while we're engaged in a conversation as well. And yeah, I think I still have some development of that within myself, and curiosity around it. But you all are helping me to sort of piece some of it together this morning. Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Della. Anybody else? Share a story from this morning? Okay, so I did want to talk to, I feel like I could save it for when Claudia's here, but maybe she'll watch the recording, or I'll just tell her to watch the recording. So one thing that she, I'm pretty sure it was her who shared this last week. If it was someone that was here, let me know. But they talked about having FOMO. You know, I talked about the idea of every once in a while, look behind you, you know, and they said, oh, but there's this fear of like missing out, you know, like I'm going to miss out on what's in front of me if I look behind me. And what came to me after the fact, and there was a great story to illuminate this, was that I believe, for myself anyway, and especially with all of you who are practicing all this on a regular basis, that our intuition will guide us to the moment when we need to turn around and listen, or when we need to turn back and watch what we were looking at before. And I had that happen to me a couple of days ago. I went to one of my favorite birding spots. It's this road that not many people know about, but it's got like a cajillion birds on it. And I was out there, and there was only one other birder like way down the road. And so I was, you know, really focused. It's a great place to watch shorebirds. And they were a little bit further away than they usually are. So I was really focusing in with my binoculars, because it's been a while since I've been looking at the little shorebirds. And I was like trying to figure out who I was seeing. So I was really, really focused, just like not pulling my face away from my binoculars. And then I just had this intuition. I was like, oh yeah, I should look up once in a while, you know, like do what I say. And so I just pulled my head away from my binoculars, and I just kind of like look around for a minute. And but it was like just as I lifted my head up, it was like maybe like 5 seconds later, all of a sudden 400 white ibis lifted off from the grass. I didn't even know they were there. They were all hiding behind, like in the tall grasses and whatnot. But they all just like lifted up off the ground. I was like, oh, wow, it was so amazing. And they all just like flew up. And this young boy who was coming down the road, he just looked at me. He's like, did you see that? And I was like, yeah, it's amazing. And it was just like, it's so cool when the birds can get other people excited who may not normally be like stoked about nature or the birds. And yeah, and then I realized in that moment, I was just like, how did I know right in that moment to pick my head up? Because I could have missed that whole thing if my eyes were still focused on that bird. And not that it's a bad thing to be focused on that bird, because I was learning a lot while I was doing it. But I know there was something within me that said, look up, you know, now's the time to look up. So I think that we can let go of the fear of missing out, because we're practicing these skills that allow our intuition to develop and to become more competent. And so that we'll just know, you know, if we put the intention out there of being connected to the majesty of the world and seeing something wonderful today, you know, then our intuition is going to guide us to when that happens, you know, and we'll just know when the time is right to look in a particular direction, you know. And every once in a while, it's good just to remind yourself, like just consciously be like, oh yeah, look around, you know. But I do think that we'll be guided to the time when that's right, you know. Yeah. Well, thanks everybody for coming. Yeah, happy equinox, by the way. Was it equinox or wait, solstice? No, equal day. Yeah, it's equinox, right? Yeah. Okay. So happy equinox, and good job observing all that you have and how all you are picking up on that, like that change that happened right away, you know, on that day. It's pretty remarkable. Nature's awesome. You're all awesome. Good job. Yeah, I know, right? Woo! Woo! Okay, so have a beautiful week. And let's see. For those of you who are interested but didn't get the message about the winter retreat, just stay on for 1 extra second just so I can see who you are. It might just be Julia, but if it's anybody else, just stay on an extra second so I can make sure that I know who you are and I can send you a message.